It was better in the 90s. What's up, guys? I'm Kanan, host of 90's Point of View, the pod all about real problems, real learnings, and real growing. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the very first episode of my podcast, 90's Point of View. As literally as the title, I'm born in the 90s and I'm in my very early 30s. In this series, I'll be sharing my point of view on the everyday life, problems, issues, and possible solutions for it. Today, we're taking a deeper look at insecurity, and I'm sure that we all have been through it before and some may still suffer from it. There are almost limitless areas of potential insecurity. Moreover, insecurity often bleeds over from one area of life into another. And there are some types of insecurity that appear frequently. Insecurity in work, relationship, body image, social insecurities, just to name a few. Now, what causes people to suffer from insecurity? When a child's attachment figures, often parents or guardians, aren't reliably available and supportive, the child often feels insecure, forms a negative self-image and relationship models, and experiences greater emotional distress and maladjustment later in life. The past experience can feed your sense of not belonging, not feeling important or interesting enough, or just not being good. People describe how being bullied or excluded from a group of friends in middle school or high school continues to negatively affect their confidence as adults. If you grew up with critical parents, right, or parents who pressured you to be popular and successful, you may also be oversensitized to how others perceive you. Now, this type of insecurity is generally based on distorted beliefs about your self-worth and about the extent to which other people are evaluating you. Most of the time, people are more focused on how they are coming across than on judging others. And those who do judge and exclude are often covering up insecurities of their own, and so their opinions may be less than accurate. They may value superficial attributes instead of character and integrity. Do you guys also know that perfectionism is also one of the causes of insecurity? Remember the time when we sit in our office and we want to write an email to someone and we spend like 15 to 20 minutes thinking about what to write, how to put it in a sentence? Yeah, I've been there too. We worry about the grammar and the vocab that we use, try to be professional. Now, this is not an English exam. The purpose of an email is to convey message, to give instructions, to follow up pending matters. With that in mind, simple sentences that are able to convey the info correctly will suffice. If you are constantly disappointed and blaming yourself for being anything less than perfect, you will start to feel insecure and unworthy. Beating up on yourself and constantly worrying about it not being good enough can lead to depression and anxiety. Now guys, how do we overcome this? Think about how much difference it would actually make if your work were 10% better. Would the time and energy spent in checking and rechecking or answering every email really be worth it? Getting it done well and on time is much more important than doing it perfectly. The fear of being evaluated by others and found to be lacking can lead you to feel anxious and self-conscious. During seminars or even in classes, when we have a question, but we are too afraid to put up our hands to ask, we worry whether people think that we are dumb for asking that, or whether people laugh at us if we ask that question. I remember when I was in school, when a teacher asks us if we have any question at all, I'm always too shy and afraid to ask questions. So there are always only two outcomes. Either I left the class without any answers to the question I had in mind, or someone who is a lot braver than me whom had the same question as mine asked the teacher, and I'll be secretly jotting down the answers. Nowadays, with technology advancing, seminars and talks often incorporate QR codes in their slides, where people can scan the QR code and type in their questions for the live Q&A session. And I think that is brilliant. One of the ways to overcome it is to try to evaluate yourself based on how much effort you put in, which is controllable, rather than on the outcome, which is dependent on external factors. Let's face it, humans are always judging others, good, bad, or like, dislike, with lots of nuance in between. And as new information comes in, the human mind reassesses. It is an ongoing process. Nothing lasts forever. The reality is that the human brain has limited data reserves. Although we may make judgment, they are not significant enough to earn a place in our memory banks for eternity. So when someone makes a judgment about you, chances are, the moments or days later, that judgment will have left their conscious awareness. We build up our understanding of people not on the minor mistakes or setbacks we observe, but by creating a schema based on the big things they do and say, and the patterns of how they interact with us and make us feel over time. Judgment is unavoidable. Stop trying to control the judgments of others. It has become part of our zeitgeist to demand that others not judge us. Think about the popular statements such as no judgments or this is a non-judgment zone. Now, none of this really helps. You can't control what others think. Maybe they won't express their judgment, but it doesn't mean they can stop a physiological brain process. Instead, try to explain the context of what you are feeling so that those you are opening up to understand you and have compassion for you. Compassion is judgment's kryptonite. When it is present, judgment have little weight because people can imagine themselves feeling the same way. Or we can let them judge. It can be liberating in an intimate relationship to just allow judgments to be present, instead of stopping yourself from being open or vulnerable or from sharing something negative but important about yourself. Do it anyway. Once you identify the fear, try to reassure yourself or find a way that you could manage the fear, if it did come to be. Remind yourself that close and intimate relationships deepen when people risk judgment. If this openness doesn't happen, it doesn't necessarily mean you have done something wrong, but it may mean the person you are working to connect with doesn't have the capacity for an emotionally intimate relationship. Notice your own judgments. There's no better way to care less about the judgments of others than to judge yourself. Of course, judgment is unavoidable, but watch the language you use in your own head about the people and events in your life. Insecurity based on recent failure or rejection. Recent events in our lives can greatly affect both our mood and the way we feel about ourselves. The biggest negative contributor to happiness is the ending of a relationship, followed by the death of a spouse, job loss, and negative health events. Since unhappiness also influences your self-esteem, failure and rejection can deliver a double whammy to your confidence. Rejection inevitably leads us to see both ourselves and other people more negatively, at least for a time. And those of us who have lower self-esteem to begin with are more reactive to failure. It's as if an experience like losing your job grabs your own negative beliefs about your self-worth and activates them. It may help to understand that failure is nearly ubiquitous experience. 9 years and 11 failed attempts. The dispatch boy from Penang who earned his wings. This inspirational story was shared by Tony Fernandez on stage a couple of years ago. Coogan the pilot had his first setback when his family was unable to afford the extravagant fees required for the flight school's pilot training course. And after that, he was offered a position as a career dispatch through a friend's referral and slowly worked his way up to the cadet pilot exam, trainings, and the rest is history. I'm going to share a couple of tips on how to improve your self-esteem. Number one is to be nice to yourself. You know that little voice that tells you that you are killing it? It's way more important than you might think. Make an effort to be kind to yourself, and if you do slip up, try to challenge any negative thoughts. A good rule of thumb is to speak to yourself in the same way you speak to your mates. And this can be really hard at first, but practice makes perfect. Exercise is a great way to increase motivation, practice setting goals, and build confidence. Breaking a sweat also cues the body to release endorphins, the feel-good hormones. Focus on what you can change. It's actually quite easy to get hung up on all the things that are out of your control, but you won't achieve much. Instead, try to focus your energy on identifying the things that are within your control and seeing what you can do about them. Do what makes you happy. If you spend time doing the little things you enjoy, you are more likely to think positively. Try to schedule in a little you time every day. Whether that is the time spent reading, cooking, or just chilling out on the couch for a bit. If it makes you happy, make time for it. Celebrate the small stuff. You got up on time this morning? Tick. You poached your eggs to perfection? Winning. Celebrating the small victories is a great way to build confidence and start feeling better about yourself. So that does it for this episode of podcast. Until next time. Thank you for listening. This is your host Kanan signing off. Remember, it was better in the 90s.